Police Minister Bheki Cele announced the crime statistics for the second quarter of 2022 on Wednesday, which saw an increase in crimes such as murder, rape and kidnappings. During the 3-month period between July and September, South Africa saw contact crimes increase by 18.5% and sexual offences by 11%. So what can we attribute this to? A reaction-driven police force and criminal justice system, or are our police stations not resourced enough to deal with the surge in crime? We're now joined by the head of the Safety and Security Management Department at the Tshwane University of Technology, Professor Kholofelo Rakubu. Prof, thank you very much for joining us this morning. Good morning to you, and thank you very much for your patience. Are we able to talk, we've heard a lot from police unions admitting really that resources are an issue. Better pay is an issue for the men and women in blue. But are we able to talk about their reaction without looking at the society itself? What drives us to be such a violent people?
Thank you for having me. Good morning to the viewers. We always have, when we talk of policing and violence that happens in communities, an important stakeholder there is the community, because the nature of criminality in South Africa is impacted by community trust in the police. And that trust in the police has 3 dimensions. And the first one, which is going to be the police system, the functionality. And we're going to talk about the individual officer's effectiveness, because that is the first point for one if they're seeking justice. So that police system is impacted negatively by individual officers' effectiveness. And the second dimension is the treatment by these officers. The minute you go in and you receive unfair treatment, you are likely not to even proceed. And that tells an offender that you can commit crime and nothing's going to happen, because the minute a victim goes in to seek help, the process is determined by the treatment that they receive from officers. Then the last one is police display of value aligned with the public's own. The way the community sees the police impact on community-police relation, and therefore extremely impact on the level of reporting. So South Africa is this highly violent because we don't trust our system. And besides trusting our system, on their side, long-standing pending issues of finance, resources, accessibility, corruption, also perpetuate level of criminality. I don't think our police service is equipped enough to even deal with the magnitude of crime in South Africa. As much as crime evolves, SAPS is left behind. We're moving towards 4th industrial revolution. Nothing has changed. They still police like they policed in 1994, when crime has evolved tremendously. We respond violently. And I think, again, South African policies are not on par with South African level of criminality. The level of criminality speaks of a different dimension. Yet the response is like you policing in Botswana, where attitude towards law enforcement is different. Here we disregard the law. And that is reflected on the small activities like driving without a driver's license or unroadworthy car and so forth. So our attitude always should, when we tap into what is required to prevent level or control level of criminality, we always have to go back to review our history as South Africa when it comes to criminality. We respond violently, we know violence, and that's how we do things. We do violence every day. Now, the National Development Plan should also be on par, because South African Police Service is expected to deal with level of criminality when the policy are very silent, they are very relaxed, it's not an eye for an eye. We do what we want and we get less. So there's need and necessity for review of policies and should be on par with the level of criminality, and also tap into communities' attitude and perception towards the law.
Prof, so essentially what? This concept of law and order does not apply in South Africa? If that then is the case, what are the solutions? One of the problems, if you will, right, that one can easily identify is when people have no purpose about their day, taking a look at the high levels of unemployment in the country, then people find means to make a living. It is not an excuse. It just merely is what is happening in a country like South Africa that is said to be highly unequal. And so what are the solutions? Practically, what can be done?
What can be done? First, we need to go back to, like I said, with attitude. And the minute we revive relationships between relevant stakeholders mandated to take lead in crime prevention, that will assist our law enforcement, because the minute you have community participation, community involvement, and while you work on community involvement, the policy should also assist you. For one to commit crime, that is a decision. You are not forced to commit crime. And there should be reason enough or laws in place that will hinder even one to think about criminality. So I know in South Africa, if I decide to kill someone today, I know where I'm going, and I know I might even come back and proceed with life. Can't we review such so that we now move to generic deterrence or general deterrence, where one would not even think of committing crime because of the repercussions? So community should be involved, community should take charge, because if now we tap into issues of community policing forums, which are important structures to assist the police, they have been politicized. They are attached to certain political parties, and communities don't even come on board, don't even assist. Then the police are working alone, and I don't think they are well equipped, or the SAPS was even meant to control or prevent crime alone. It just doesn't work. The community policing philosophy required that there should be collaboration. So maybe we should review and attend to the identified long-standing issues that hinders effective implementation of the CPF policies or any other relevant strategy in crime prevention and control.
Head of the Safety and Security Management Department at the Tshwane University of Technology, Professor Kholofelo Rakubu. Thank you very much, ma'am, for availing yourself this morning.